Oh, I almost forgot. There is just one more thing to show you. Enjoy.
Oh là 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 là, c'est pour nous. Ne me décevez pas. Ne me décevez pas.
Sigmar lied.
Wow.
Sigmar told us we were chosen. Warriors, stolen from death.
Oh ouais.
To be reforged as his weapons.
C'est la plus belle annonce qu'on ait eue. Hein.
The immortal sons and daughters of the Storm God.
Ou la Malpierre, ou la Malpierre, ou la Malpierre. Wouah! Oh, le roi cornu, on l'a vu! Le rat cornu! Oh bordel. Mais non, faut pas faire sonner les cloches contre des Skaven! What? Donc eux c'est ceux qu'on a vus dans le... C'est la nouvelle figue.
Sigmar lied. He never told us the true cost of this honor. Soon, all that will remain of me is an echo, lost to the storm. But until that day, I fight.
Wow. Bah dis donc, ça parlait moins dans le chat là. Oh la baffe.
Yes, it's official. Warhammer Age of Sigmar's new edition is here.
Allez.
And it's coming very, very soon. I'm joined by Ben and Phil and Matt from the AOS Studios.
Wow, il a maigri Ben Johnson.
All things Age of Sigmar.
Oh
Guys,
la
welcome to the
vache.
show. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot.
First of all, let's jump straight in with that cinematic. I mean, come on, that thing is absolutely amazing. We were blown away by that. Let's talk about some of your top highlights from the cinematic trailer.
I mean, it was gobsmacking. The first time we saw it, we were like, what? It's just absolute tour de force. We've been working with these characters and these different factions for a while, but seeing them brought
Vous avez remarqué comme moi le mec sur monture hein, quand même. Hein.
Yeah, I love that they've worked so hard on that as well. You can tell that they're really bringing those sort of like miniatures to life. That bit where.
Bah en fait Sigmar a menti parce qu'en fait reforger les âmes à l'infini ça avait un coût. Donc ça devait développer, je pense, c'est ce qu'elle explique en fait. C'est que ça avait un coût et ça devait renforcer le chaos. Jusqu'au moment où.
of Age of Sigmar. So whereabouts are we now?
The Hour of Ruin has dawned, right?
Non, mais ça c'est trop beau en plus.
So we've just come out of the Era of the Beast, very destruction focused. Chaos strikes back. We've seen the Skaven enter play in a great cataclysm called the Vermindoom. That was the big explosion with all the stuff
ce moment
rising
il
out
est
of the ground.
dingue.
That's an entire nation of Skaven. It's not just a small area. Has gate crashed the party. A full third of the Great Parch is now completely destroyed and replaced by Blight City, the Skaven Otherworld. And they are pouring out of there in their billions.
En tout cas, ils ont respecté Nagash.
So the Stormcast Eternals and their
On l'a vu à l'échelle, ça rigole pas.
Quickly, that tide is coming and it's not stopping anytime soon.
Nice. So you chatted a little bit about the Skaven there and sort of how the mortal realms have sort of been reforged and stuff. So let's chat a little bit about the Skaven. What makes them so much more dangerous and so much more sort of horrifying in this new edition?
Well, we've seen the Skaven before. They're old friends, aren't they? We've all grown up with Skaven in a way. They're so Warhammer. What we're seeing now is not just a few of them creeping around in the sewers, but a real tidal wave of these things.
Ouais, lui, on l'a vu.
And the horror of the Skaven really is coming through, as well as the humour, because of course there are a few beats of them running away and getting speared, and they're a giant rattling blaster form. The
Claw Lord.
The Claw Lord just bailing.
No, it's not.
There's still that sense of humour to the Skaven and their kind of slightly charming cowardice. But we are also seeing the Skaven on their best day, which is pretty terrifying, with all the weird Frankensteinian monsters and technology and numbers, just plain numbers.
En tout cas, je sais pas ce que vous en pensez, mais pour moi, il n'y a pas une seule cinématique, en tout cas sur iOS, qui m'a fait cet effet-là. Le trailer est dingue.
So let's chat a little bit about the Hallowed Knights and the Ruination Chamber as well. Tell us about that.
Sigmar hit the big button, didn't he, and opened another chamber. The Ruination Chamber, these guys, as we saw in the main character in the trailer,
Je te réponds juste après,
so
Matsuto.
many times they're starting to lose that little bit of themselves, losing that thing that made them human, and they're turning into incredible warriors that can go into some of those really awful places in the mortal realm. So we saw that, didn't we? The regular Stormcast are there, and there's bits of their armor coming away because they can't quite get in there. But the guys from the Ruination Chamber, in they go. We are the guys to do that.
Yeah,
that's almost the benefit they get from their immortality is a curse. We've talked about this. So it might seem like a blessing to be these big, strong heroes and they've got all the kit, but really they're dying over and over again. That's not a good thing, and they're paying the price.
Oh, and that was really one of my favorite things from the trailer. I think it's the first time we've, really been able to show that so clearly. Both the blessing of immortality, but as Phil said, the curse of the immortality and the kind of character that we see throughout the trailer. Seeing that journey, both of becoming more veteran and becoming more elite and a stronger warrior, but then losing that aspect of the humanity, and ultimately near the end of that journey, becoming kind of so.
Tu sens qu'ils sont fiers d'eux quand même. Hein. Quand tu vois la cinématique, tu peux comprendre. Puis même, franchement, le design là, du Stormcast, tu vois vraiment même son évolution physique au fur et à mesure des Reforges.
This will be the biggest shift in rules since the introduction
Ouais,
of Age of Sigmar.
est-ce que ce serait pas c'est clairement le bouquin de la V4 ça, hein.
Round-up rewrite of the rule set.
A priori, on jouera sur des tables rectangulaires, si j'en crois le dessin. À confirmer, à confirmer.
When we were doing that. The first was opening up the game to more players than ever. Really trying to make sure that the game was easy to learn, easy for new players to get into.
Moi, je distille les infos.
The tactical depth that makes it really difficult
avec parcimonie, bien sûr.
Where you could spend years and years playing and gaining that skill and that skill expression. The second thing was building on.
Alors a priori, je sais pas si ça sera jouable sur table ronde. Il va falloir que le diamètre soit au moins égal à la diagonale du rectangle. Donc après c'est Pythagore tout ça.
These really nail-biting finishes, these really closely fought battles, where every game can be exciting and tense. And this is such a big shift for the rules, such a big update that not only have we done a major update to all the core rules, But also, every faction will be getting brand new rules for this edition.
Ça,
so
c'est
there's
cool.
lots and lots of exciting things to look forward to coming up soon.
Yeah. So you guys were obviously heavily involved.
Donc en gros, ils n'ont pas changé que les core rules, mais ils sont repassés sur toutes les armées. Est-ce que ça sera à la sauce de 40K avec les codex index sortis V10?
No, the bit for me that I really love, I think it's a small change but it has huge impacts, is combat range. So weapon ranges have gone away, so for melee, and everything now runs off combat range, so a 3-inch range, and that works for things like claiming objectives, how characters can interact with other units, how benefits can be applied, and then also in combat. And it just makes that combat phase so much slicker, so much quicker to play than it ever has before.
Yeah.
Ça me fait un peu peur. Donc ils ont accéléré les mécaniques de phase de close.
And I'm big into telling a story on the battlefield and seeing, having those games which you talk about 10 years later, and having the rules almost get out of the way to be able to do that. And the way we've made these rules is they're so accessible and easy to use. We'll come to that in a minute. That it just is far easier to see the ebb and flow of the battle and to do cool stuff on the battlefield. It's really good fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's really been kind of learning from all of the editions in the past. Through that work of making it more accessible, what we're really doing is trying to make it more elegant as a rule set, and looking for opportunities to really merge down without losing any of that tactical.
C'est ce qu'il a dit, Fabien, là.
And the flavor and the lore that comes through in these war scrolls and on the battlefield.
I think you've said before, Matt, as well, we've got almost a decade's worth of knowledge now and feedback from players all over the world. To be able to put into that.
À voir les gars. Sur le papier, ça fait peur parce que c'est quand même une des mécaniques importantes du jeu. Maintenant, ils ont eu l'occasion de tester, ils sont intelligents, ils commencent à avoir pas mal d'expérience, donc je pense qu'ils n'ont pas fait n'importe quoi. En plus, pour le coup, Ben, il est aussi joueur, compétiteur, donc...
Talk to us about that. What tell us everything about Spearhead that we need to know.
Gosh, everything. So Spearhead, it comes in the launch box, so everything you need to play Spearhead.
Mais par contre,
the models, the board, the terrain, the cards, the rules for every faction. As well are all included in the box, so you can
hormis ça, ça veut quand même dire que, en fait, il y a des War Scrolls qui tiraient leur force du fait d'avoir une belle range. Il va falloir repasser sur tous les châssis, quoi. Si Xéon, First Time Chat, ça fait 6 mois que je suis pas passé sur Twitch. Normalement, si, sauf si tu l'as déjà dépensé ou que ton compte n'est pas lié.
Really fast and furious and very balanced way to play the game.
That speed is what's taken the studio by storm, isn't it? The amount of games that are played, because you can play it in an hour, play it at lunchtime really easily.
But there's still all that tactical depth. It really feels like you're still playing a big war game. You're playing Warhammer, but it's a lot easier to do. And each of the spearheads has been really well balanced against the other. Even if it looks like you might have the advantage, so Indrasta's spearhead, Indrasta being a very powerful champion of Sigmar and her elite Stormcast Eternals, the real punch of that spearhead doesn't show up till halfway through the game. That gives a kind of inbuilt narrative to the game. So you've got this scenario where your normal Stormcaster trying to hold the line and hold back the enemy, and then pow, straight halfway through the battle, in comes Indrasta and her.
C'est assez intéressant. En tout cas,
so there's like an inbuilt story to that. There are choices you can
il
make.
va y avoir
so
des sacrés changements.
Different command traits or artifacts. You can give your army different ways to fight. And of course, the board is double-sided, so you've got Akshi side on one side, if you want to fight in Akshi, fire and passion. On the other side is Gairan, which is much more lush vegetation, healing, and the cycle of life. And the cards that you pick up every turn will give you different objectives. Go there, kill that, get your dudes over that side. So there is an extremely
je sais pas, Shurat, est-ce que ce sera des keywords par style d'arme qui te fera taper sur... À mon avis, ça, on va avoir un truc du genre comme les Chaos Knight, 40K, un demi d'une figurine à un demi, ça résout pas mal de problèmes.
We brought in a group of kind of veteran playtesters. It ended up turning into effectively a tournament over the weekend where they all got really, really into it and really competitive. And so this is something that we've seen really resonate with players and people gain a lot of excitement for.
I think what's been fun from like an experienced player is picking up any spearhead and just because there's so few rules around their battle traits and there's so few war scrolls involved that you can just pick it up and play a game and not feel like you're missing out on anything. So there's quite a lot of times when we go into the playtest room to play a game, we go, what are we going to play with? You know what, I've not played with the Glimpse Like Gits for a while, so you take those off the shelf and you can have a game. And again, it's still around about an hour, even with something that you've not played for a while.
You're just working your way through them. Yeah, that's great. Let's chat a little bit about faction packs as well, because I know you mentioned this earlier, Matt. You've used this new edition as a really good opportunity to sort of update and rebalance and rewrite all of the units for the
Merci mon petit Xéon pour ton subprime.
Because there's such kind of sweeping changes throughout the rule set, it was really the perfect opportunity to go back and revisit factions. We had some playtest games early on and some conversations early on where, you know, it was a big kind of learning point for us that, you know, the game could never be, would never be less complex than the most complex faction, because you might either be playing with that faction or against that faction. And so, you know, a lot of that same approach to streamlining and really trying to focus in on the most impactful rules, the most characterful rules, but removing a lot of the other detail that maybe you had to manage before. So a really good example is the reintroduction of a limited set of universal special rules. So things like champions or standard bearers, musicians, you know, some weapon abilities. You know, now instead of needing a full rule on each war scroll to explain how this works, you can just say champion and everyone knows how that works.
Non, mais ça c'est bien. Ça c'est bien, faut unifier un petit peu les war scrolls.
Really clean, really easy to do. So it makes each war scroll
ça c'est super.
Much faster to read, much easier to use. Every single war scroll fits on a single-sided card.
Ça c'est bien.
Pour
le coup, c'est un truc que j'ai beaucoup envie à la V10, c'est le système de mots-clés, c'est clair. T'es pas là à dire ah ouais non mais attends mais squelettes ils ont pas de standard bearer et puis je te conseille d'aller voir la cinématique Groundbag sur Warhammer Community avant toute chose.
I think one of my favourite parts of that is that the colour coding system, quite visual. We like to look at the battlefield and look at our war scrolls and our books, and each ability has a colour to go with it to tell you what phase you use that ability in. So you're not having to go through all of your rules all the time. You just look for
ouais, donc ils ont fait un petit code visuel.
Exactly. And that's just really easy way to pass the rules and to know what you can do at certain times.
We've really tried to look from a lore perspective, from a miniatures perspective, from a rules perspective. One of our main tenets of the game is that the rules reflect the mortal realms, right? And so we think the game works best when all three of those things are working in concert, where it feels intuitive to players. And so this is really the first time we've been able to go back and really differentiate the different races, the different units, the different factions, and give them much more of an identity through the characteristics.
So these war scrolls, they'll be free to access on launch, right?
Yeah, that's right. So there's digital versions of them available at launch, and there's also card versions of them as well. So
donc comme la V10, codex index free à la sortie.
Armies of Renown, Regiments of Renown, you know, content from the Dawnbringer series that you've been playing through, all updated for the new edition.
Everybody gets something new and cool to look through.
Yes.
Hopefully it will inspire you to telling great stories on the battlefield and having a lot of games of Age of Sigmar. So yeah, hope you will enjoy it.
Great, thank you so much. Well, Ben, Phil, Matt, thank you so much for joining us and coming into the studio to chat a little bit about Age of Sigmar.
Je suis assez impatient de voir. Franchement, je leur fais confiance. Ils ont fait un super taf en V3.
Well, that's all we've got time for. What a show and what a series of announcements. Thank you to Adepticon for having us, and thank you to you for being with us. We hope you've enjoyed it just as much as we have. Remember, you can head to the Warhammer Community website if you'd like to find out more about any of the
non, pas de nouveau Battle Tome en tout cas qui a été annoncé.
Keep up to date with all the latest news. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on the Warhammer Preview Show.
Pas de nouveau Battle Tome qui a été annoncé, mais la sortie c'est clairement du Skaven Stormcast. Je suis désolé les gars, j'ai eu un petit problème de micro, j'ai un truc qui a cramé carrément chez moi au niveau de la recharge, donc enfin de micro de caméra je voulais dire. Donc voilà, je suis impatient de voir mes bof fans de l'idée de carte randomness en plus. J'ai pas suivi ça malheureusement, mais voilà, grosso modo sur les changements, ils ont dit qu'ils allaient grandement, alors ils n'ont pas dit simplifier, mais ils ont dit fluidifier la phase de close. Sûrement un système à la 40K puisqu'il n'y aura plus de range sur les armes. Je pense que ça leur tient à cœur d'avoir quelque chose d'unifié. On l'a vu, elle avait 10 de 40K. Il y a eu énormément de sorties de mots-clés. Ça a beaucoup... En fait, il y a un coup d'entrée qui est d'apprendre les mots-clés, mais derrière, ça fluidifie énormément. Voilà, on le voit. Les Talites, machin, compagnie. Je pense que c'est un mal pour un bien. Va falloir s'y faire au début. Mais je pense que c'est une très, très, très bonne chose. Il paraît d'avoir des cartes en main façon 40K. Ouais, après, c'est un moyen, tu vois. En fait, tu peux créer des listes qui peuvent ou pas gérer plus ou moins l'aléatoire de ça. Donc voilà. Bref, écoutez les petits potes, je vais vous laisser. En tout cas, c'était un vrai plaisir. J'ai vu qu'on était pas mal à 4h ou 5h du matin. C'est quand même assez cool. J'espère que vous êtes aussi hypés que moi à l'idée de cette nouvelle version. Pour ceux qui n'ont pas vu, je vous invite vraiment, avant toute chose, à aller voir le trailer de lancement de V4 qui est très clairement, à mon sens, le plus beau trailer qu'on ait eu sur AOS. 40K, je connais moins. Je sais que j'avais pris une grosse baffe avec un Domitus à l'époque. Mais voilà, je vous invite vraiment à aller voir le trailer avant de regarder les annonces de changement de règles et compagnie. Je vous souhaite, pour une nuit, c'est un peu compliqué, mais une très bonne journée. Et je vous dis salut, salut!